4,200 meters, it was a real delight to find such a comfortable tent and even a real bathroom in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to get a good night's sleep at 4,200 meters. The altitude has different effects on different bodies, but most of us have only had a fitful sleep. Sometimes you wake up suddenly with a shortness of breath, as your red blood cells learn how to extract the right amount of oxygen from a much thinner air. But in spite of the lack of sleep, our spirits were still good, and we were ready for the longest day's riding of the trip. Today our journey would take us from Sachu all the way to Leh. The distance we had to cover was about 250 kilometers, a lot for any Indian road. And we were in some of the highest mountains in the world, not to mention 3 more passes of over 5,000 meters that we had to cross before arriving in Ladakh. But the scenery that we started to ride through was so beautiful that it absorbed us totally. We found ourselves entering a landscape of high mountain desert, so pristine and quiet that we felt like the first human beings ever to lay eyes on it.
Just imagine that they walked, you know. I mean, I wonder if they still walk along these paths.
I've never seen a path like it in my life. I can't believe a human can walk along that path down there. I can understand goats doing it, and there's a few easier spits way over there, but when it gets like that on that cliff face, oh.
After crossing 2 more passes, we climbed up to the Moreh Plain, a huge high desert area of stunning beauty.
The first time I came driving here, I was riding my bike and tears were just pouring down my cheeks. I was just like, I couldn't believe that I was driving in this area. I couldn't believe. It looked like being in a picture book.
This is the western end of the Changtang Plateau that stretches all the way into Tibet. The only inhabitants of this region are the Khampas. These are nomadic tribes who throughout the year graze their herds on the Changtang. Although the winter temperatures may drop to -40 degrees centigrade, they live in simple tents and survive by selling their pashmina wool to merchants from Kashmir, where it is spun into shawls, a trade that has been going on for hundreds of years. As we ride across this huge plain, the feeling of freedom is immense. Everything else seems to disappear into this vastness and emptiness, and all that is left is the bike and the incredible landscape. We start the long climb out of the Changtang and up the winding road that leads to the last and highest pass we will cross before Leh. Tanglang La is over 5,200 meters above sea level and is the second highest motorable road in the world. The prayer flags welcome us as they have done all along the road.
Guru Bhakti ka chamka sitara, Guru Bhakti ka chamka sitara.
It is the highest that any of our group have been in their lives outside of an aeroplane, and we know that everything is literally downhill from here.
Guru Bhakti ka chamka sitara, Guru Bhakti ka chamka sitara.
As you follow the windy road down from Tanglang La, suddenly you feel that you're entering a different world. The browns and greys and reds of the high desert plateau give way to pastures of green barley, and villages begin to appear again. Chortens or stupas dot the landscape. The Upshi Valley is both narrow and lush and filled with rock formations of many different colors. The valley has a special geological interest, as it was here that the first impact took place between the southern and northern plates as they collided, and created the Himalaya many thousands of years ago. We are now only 50 kilometers from Leh, and at Upshi the road joins the fertile Indus Valley, and we follow the river into Leh itself. After some 480 kilometers over several days of hard riding, it is a great feeling to have finally arrived in Ladakh.
I mean, Leh is really a beautiful place. There's something quite magic about Leh. As soon as you leave the shopping scene, you move out into these incredible sort of villagey rural areas which you can wander around, incredible stone walls, and just a very simple way of life that's been going on for a long period of time.
शिखर से अनहद गूंजा घट आकाश से पंछी बोला शून्य शिखर से अनहद गूंजा घट आकाश.
Leh looks out over the magnificent Stock mountain range, and after a couple of days of rest in our hotel, we're ready to explore some of the gompas around Leh. Ladakh is known as Little Tibet, as Tibetan Buddhism has flourished here for so long. Our first stop is Tikse Gompa, which is set high on a hill and can be seen from miles around. It is one of the busiest gompas in Ladakh.
Monasteries themselves are always beautiful. My relationship with them was more to do with what space I was in and in what place in myself I was prepared to meet them at. Often very confronted because you're with a group and the whole group decides to sit, and all of a sudden my mind is in complete turmoil, going at 100 miles an hour, and there I am, sort of with that also. But very beautiful. The silence, the ancientness, the fact that that space has been held in that form for so many hundreds of years, and that there are people who dedicate their lives to doing just that, to holding a space for this planet in a place of peace, a place of rest, inner rest, immediately accessible by someone who's come from the West. All of a sudden you just met with this, how to describe it? It's almost like a vessel that's ready to carry you, I don't know, into myself, and that I don't have to do anything for it almost, but be there and show up.
As we look around the dark temple rooms in Tikse, the familiar smells of butter lamps and incense seem to come from the walls themselves. You are surrounded by such a feeling of ancientness and quiet. Everywhere you look, images of the Buddha in all his different manifestations peer down at you and remind you of the peace that he found for himself and offered to others in return.
When you're sitting there, there's this peace that descends, and you're suddenly feeling really, really dissolved or something in the way the space, just provides this energy for you.
Old manuscripts containing the Buddha's teachings line the walls of the Gompa in small cubicles, to be taken out and used in the ritual pujas or prayers that the monks perform daily. Tibetan Buddhism has a strong tradition of religious art, and the walls are lined with frescoes and statues in an outpouring of color and form. There is a long tradition in Ladakh that each family will send one of their youngest sons to the Gompa to prepare them for monkhood. This practice is another link between the Gompa and the community that it is a part of. Tiksay is a school for these young boys who will be able to decide whether the life of a monk suits them as they reach adulthood. Most of them will choose to stay in the Gompa. After leaving Tiksay, we wound our way into a hidden side valley to find Hemis Gompa. Gompas are either built on the highest ground and dominate the surrounding landscape, or, like Hemis, they are tucked away from the eyes in secluded canyons. Founded in the early 17th century, it is the richest monastery in Ladakh. The protective saint of Hemis is Padmasambhava. In the 7th century, a king in western Tibet invited him to come from India and spread the teachings of the Buddha. Although Buddhism only took hold over several centuries in Tibet, Padmasambhava is credited with being the first to help establish it there, and is highly revered in Tibetan Buddhism. Every year, each Gompa in Ladakh will have a festival that will last for a few days. There is a real party atmosphere, as all the local people dress up in their finest clothes and jewelry, and crowd into their Gompa to witness the sacred ceremonies that take place. Many of them happen in the winter months, but we were lucky enough to be in Ladakh when Hemis Gompa had their annual festival. It is a time to give thanks to the protective deities that belong to each monastery, and also a time of celebration and festivity for the whole community. The monks dress up in colourful costumes to perform a series of dances to the bellow of long mountain horns, the clash of cymbals, and the rattle of hand drums. For this dance, the monks put on masks that show the 8 different manifestations of Padmasambhava, while the golden mask represents the saint himself, who is kept cool by a large parasol and fan. The whole ceremony is such a feast for the senses, with all the costumes, masks and music, and we all left feeling the aliveness and continued meaning of Buddhism to everyone in the community. Early one morning, we left Leh to ride over Cardamom to visit Nubra Valley. You climb 2,000 meters over 40 kilometers of winding mountain road until you reach the highest motorable road in the world. At 5,600 meters, the pass is higher than any mountain in Europe or America, and higher than the base camp at Mount Everest. The view down onto Leh is wonderful, and you feel that you are even higher than the 6,000 meter peaks that surround the town.
Is neither revealed
गया है